So, John, thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for taking your time out of your busy schedules here. I know everyone's busy doing their actual work during the day, attending events. Again, my name is Peter Koo. I'm with Informatica. This is a company that I've been with for, gosh, this is year 17 for me. And I go back 13 years when I first met John Bottega, when he was the CDO of the New York Federal Reserve Bank. And I was at another conference in New York City, and they were introducing these roles, Chief Data Officer, 13 years ago. We're like, what's that? Right? Who are these people? And obviously the role of data, the importance of data governance.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I didn't know I was being recorded. Now I got to really behave. So as I was saying, I saw and had the opportunity to witness data governance evolve, not just in the financial services industry, but really across all industries and across all regions. I've also had the opportunity to witness the evolution of technology. And we think about AI, right? The word intelligence. There's this one gentleman you guys may recognize, right? His quote here, it's been appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity. We're at a point right now where we are living a transformational period with artificial intelligence, but more importantly, around GenAI and what it's actually going to do to the existence of human beings. And if you go back in time, as human beings evolved, we discovered fire, changed lives. We got to cook meat. We developed tools that allowed us to be more productive as human beings. We've seen the invention of the wheel that helped transform countries, borders, governments, and human mankind, of course. And with good old Benjamin Franklin discovering electricity, obviously the way we live each and every day has also changed over the years. That led to the development of new innovations around, who knows what this is? It's the first steam engine, all right? And what that did to manufacturing, to society, and what this is the first printing press, where religion expanded to the words that human beings were conveying to other human beings across the globe. And of course, the invention of the computer changed the way we do everything in our lives today. But that is not where we stopped. The other big transformational period, I'm a Gen X person, so for me, I got to see mobile phones, and I used to have a beeper. How many of you had beepers back in the day? Pagers, right? Hey. But when the internet came about, I used to work at a company called Visa. You might know of them. And I remember the recommendation, we put together a business case to say, we should leverage this thing called the internet to help reduce the printing costs of the credit card industry from sending out paper-based statements. They're like, are you out of your mind? There's no way in hell we're going to be sending credit card data and information across this thing called the internet. Well, that idea obviously got squashed, and here we are today, right? It's transformed the way we live. And of course, this little device that each of us have in our pockets and our bags has helped provide more productivity to the modern world that we live in today than any other technology that has come about. So here we are in the world of GenAI. I was at the Databricks conference this week. I was at the AWS FinServ Symposium last week. And literally every event that I go to, everywhere, everyone's talking about GenAI. Now, my background, I was educated. My background is actually in applied statistics and corporate finance. So I was a numbers guy. I was hired by a credit card bank. There's a little company called SAS out in North Carolina, Dr. Goodnight. I was a data miner. And we use technology to build models to help predict who's going to accept a credit card offer, who's not going to, who's going to use their cards the right way versus the wrong way. And we had a lot of dependence on the data that we needed to help build the models, because there was one presentation I heard last week from the chief AI officer from Bloomberg said, artificial intelligence, AI modelers are not data management people. How many in the room here are AI people in the room? You're not data management folks. You build the models, you train the models. But like what John said earlier, it depends on what you feed the model. And at the end of the day, it's all about data. Now, the investments around GenAI are growing exponentially. I'll give you a data point. This was actually a study done by IDC last year. 19.4 billion is what the world spent on AI back in 2023. Anyone want to take a guess where they expect the number to be in 2017? Roughly about 151 billion. JP Morgan Chase, anybody here from JP Morgan in the room? So JP Morgan, your fifth pillar, actually your fourth pillar in your corporate technology initiatives is analytics and AI, all right? Out of the $15.4 billion in the 2024 technology budget of JP Morgan Chase, roughly about $5 billion of that is centered around AI investments. Now, what are companies actually doing with GenAI? And they're going to be doing a lot because there's a lot of money being spent on technology, people, to help build the models, to train the models. But guess where they're cutting costs? They're cutting costs in labor across other parts of the business because most of the GenAI investments in financial services, there's a lot of internal use cases being used to help automate manual processes in which human beings were involved with, including, by the way, the areas of data management. When we think about GenAI use cases across industries, there's quite a few. You can Google it. You can use OpenAI. You can use Perplexity and other tools that will tell you what organizations are actually using AI for. In the healthcare and life sciences industry, it's about saving lives, finding cures. In the government sector, how many of you are in the public sector industry in this room? Right. It's about efficiencies. I go to in the U.S. DMV to renew your license. How archaic the processes are. I see the people sitting there. I'm going, man, AI could really automate the entire process. Or literally, you could run most of the government through an automated fashion. Right. Now, at the end of the day, in financial services, and that's the sector that I focus on, there is a lot of expectation and excitement around what GenAI and large language models can actually do to help improve the knowledge of the people that do work for these organizations today. Now, most of these, again, are internal use cases, with the exception of the external use cases. Bank of America has Erica, Wells Fargo has Fargo, right? The customer service applications that can help provide the answers that their customers are seeking about the services that they provide, the status of their transactions, the status of their accounts and their financial health of who they are as human beings. These use cases, when you think about the business value of AI, there's a lot of questions around what's the ROI from GenAI, right? And these are just some examples, and I'll share with you guys the slides here in terms of what the market expects. Now, the analysts are going to put really big numbers out there and say, you're going to save a lot of money, you're going to make a lot of money, you're going to cure cancer, you're going to help reduce wars. There's a lot of promises out there. And the one point, I think, John, you made earlier, there has to be a business case around any of these investments, whether it's cloud, whether it's AI, whether it's data management or anything else, because nowadays, and probably more now than ever, organizations aren't spending money on things and hope that people will use it, including GenAI. There has to be applications of the technology so that it really solves real business problems that have measurable impact to net income per employee. Now, we all know, and Informatica's model is, hey, everyone's ready for AI, but your data. And I've seen some really interesting use cases and demonstrations of AI go well. And we've also seen some really embarrassing situations where you had shareholders and investors that were demonstrated the latest technologies around AI in the financial services industry. And during the demo, the GenAI applications that they built actually failed. We're seeing this each and every day. Now, there's a lot of hallucinations that occur, wrong answers. Imagine if you're a client of a wealth management firm and you're interacting with an AI engine and it gives you the wrong advice. That one experience, that negative experience, you lose the trust with your clients. You'll lose the trust with your employees if you deploy it the wrong way, and you will never, ever recover. It's as bad as having a data breach in the cloud ecosystem, right? We hear the news, in fact, some of the most recent news out there, and even in our space. The top data management requirements for successful AI investments starts with data integration and lineage. You have to know what data you have, how is it being used, where it comes from, what happens to it from creation to consumption. And if that consuming layer, let's say, is a Snowflake or a Databricks lakehouse in the cloud, you want to know what's happening to the data from the actual source systems actually landing into the landing zone, what's happening to it in the curation zone. Pulling all that data is not easy. We know that here at Informatica. Integrating, ingesting, syndicating, and sharing and providing that lineage view is a very difficult thing to do. We've learned that through the CDMC efforts that we were involved with the council. And lineage, we know, is very important to not just the financial services industry, but for all sectors. The Holy Grail, good quality data, rubbish in, rubbish out, right? When you don't have good data, enterprise data, we're not talking about internet data, enterprise data to train your LLMs, you better make sure that data is right, that people actually know what right means. If you don't have the ability to profile and report the current state of your data, you're not going to gain the trust of the business organizations that are spending money on smart people like you and your team to leverage these technologies to hope that you're actually going to achieve the value or some of the examples I shared earlier. And then we talked about governance and security. Very, very important. I think data governance will become more important than ever as organizations depend on solutions and technologies like GenAI, because how do you know what data you use to actually train your models? Once your models are trained and then deployed, how do you ensure that the authoritative data is actually being fed into those models to support your business decisions and processes? The question is, why is data management so hard? Well, like I said, I've been with Informatica almost 2 decades. I've been in this industry for even longer than that. Traditionally, data management problems were solved by throwing a lot of smart human beings at the problem, including data governance. I remember when data governance was rolled out. You had the CDO, you had data stewards, you're recruiting people from the business, say, hey, you're going to become a steward. What does that mean, right? Well, here are all the responsibilities. Okay, so what do you use? SharePoint and spreadsheets, right? We've heard that. And to that point, data management investments around the technology, organizations will use whatever they have. We know that. Informatica has been in business for 30 years. We have customers using our old ETL product. They're trying to load and ingest data into the cloud. It doesn't work. But you use what you have. And then if you don't have the proper tools and you have smart people, what do you end up doing? Hey, I'll just build it. I got a third-degree black belt in SQL programming. I'm good to go. And guess what? This is the reality of the data management practice today in the 21st century. And John, you've obviously seen the evolution of data management and I had one picture about punch cards. I remember the story you told me about punch. Yeah, no. But the stories that I hear are still things that and practices that companies are involved in today. Your data has to be fit for business use. Why? Because your business cares about it. Whether you're in financial services and retail and healthcare, government, travel and entertainment, you're all about improving customer experience. You're competing against competition. Obviously, you need to grow wallet share. You got to comply with all those regulations. Risk management, it's not just in financial services, but any industry. There are risks and threats, some of which we're now experiencing that we haven't seen 10 years ago. The geopolitical activities that are going on around the world, climate change impacts to the bottom line, and everybody wants to do more with less. The investments that you're making, whether it's in digital, cloud, analytics, and AI, your data has to be fit for business use. Your data has to be accessible to the systems and applications, including GenAI, that need it. It has to be transparent, connected. Your apps have to be connected. Your data has to be clean. Your data also has to be valid. What do we mean by that? Having valid sources of customer data. Even outside of the evolution of cloud, I worked with many banks where the average number of source systems that had client data were literally in the hundreds. And all of this cloud investment that we're talking about, moving to the cloud, et cetera, to replace the old systems, well, in the financial services industry, we're really bad at getting rid of the old stuff, right? And of course, it has to be governed properly. And it has to be understood by each and every business user, not just the people that are responsible for data management. I'm talking about the person who just joined the company 3 weeks ago to the person who's been working in your organization for 30 years. If you don't know what data you have, what it means, where you should use it, how you should not use it, and honestly, the question is your data fit for business use? So when you think about the definitions of fit for business use data, ask yourselves and ask your business sponsors and the people that you work with, is your data fit for business use? And if not, what's the measurable business impact? These are the problems that we solve at Informatica. We provide solutions that provide these capabilities in one single platform. And we're also leveraging, I want to introduce you to Claire. Claire is our adoption of AI. So we talked about modern data management. Why has data management been so hard? Throwing bodies at the problem, using whatever tools have been laying around, and building custom processes. What Claire is doing for Informatica, our use of AI with large language models, machine learning, and natural language processing capabilities, we have included co-piloting capabilities, and every vendor nowadays has a co-pilot. right? Assisting the worker to say, hey, what's wrong with my data? Instead of trying to figure out how do you actually fix the data, co-piloting is saying, here are the data quality rules out of the box that fixes that problem. Would you like to deploy it? So it's assisting the skilled professional using our technology today to get their jobs done faster, better, and cheaper. But we are beyond that. We just launched Claire GPT. So this is our use of LLMs against all that metadata we're scanning across your enterprise, both on-prem and in the cloud. And what we're doing is we're actually providing a Siri-like experience on Informatica. Let me show you what that looks like. So this is the Claire GPT interface. It actually launched last month. Allows you to do things like, well, what do I want to know about my data? What do we have? What data do we use to comply with BCBS 239, as an example? You want to understand the relationships between your data sets that were never defined before. And then the other side of this is that Claire will actually do the work for you. Similar to like last night, I say, hey, Siri, oh, my phone doesn't go off. I said, Siri, can you set the alarm for 7 o'clock in the morning? And it did that for me, instead of me going to the phone, setting my alarm. What we're doing with Claire, down here, natural language. So for example, show me the customer data sets that I use for cross-sell analysis across Omni and Acme. It actually ran a scan across the metadata, and it's showing you the data sets that they use. One comes from SAP, another one comes from Salesforce. Next, create a pipeline that reads from these SAP and Salesforce data sets and write that into C360, which is our MDM platform.
Thank everybody. Thank you very much.
So what is it going to do? It's actually going to create the data pipeline for you. In the past, you would have to learn how to use Informatica, click, drag. You create the pipeline, you test it. Claire is actually running that process without a human being doing it. So you created the pipeline. Next thing what you want to do is you want to run the pipelines. So what it's actually running is the load from those two sources directly into the MDM hub. Next, I want to understand the match models in 360 MDM. So in the past, you'd have to actually go in and say, okay, what match algorithms are we using? It's now showing you the matching rules that it's using and what the results are. Okay. Now, I actually want to run the deduplication process with an MDM. Again, to do that with Informatica in the past, you'd have to go through Informatica MDM training or hire really good consultants that know the technology. This is doing that work for you. Then you want to say things like, well, I want to understand what we have about our customers. For example, list customer by tier and credit card ownership. So we have information that we can then generate scorecards, and we can publish these out to complement your Tableaus or the Power BI solutions, or directly import that into Salesforce or into SAP, whatever business applications that you need to have. There's a lot more behind Claire. What Claire is going to do is to help automate and scale and operationalize data management for the enterprise, leveraging GenAI, large language models, because here's the thing, folks. The demand for data is growing exponentially. GenAI, the hype cycle, we're living it now. In about 2 years, it's going to be something else. Then what's next? Every time a new hype cycle comes about, there's more data being created, more data being consumed. The challenge we have across industries is the supply of skilled labor to fulfill that demand is not growing equally. This is where technology comes into play. And this is what Informatica is doing and helping organizations scale, automate, but doing it in an intelligent way so that you can gain efficiencies to reduce the cost of managing and governing data. But more importantly, ensuring that the data that the business needs, whether for GenAI, cloud, digital, you name it, is fit for business use. So now the question is, how fit for business use is your data? Does the business understand that? If not, have that conversation. What's wrong with our data? Your business partners will tell you what's wrong with it, or what they don't have, or what they're struggling with. The next question you should be asking is, what's the measurable business impact because of these data challenges today? And that's going to help define not only your data strategy, but the business case to help justify spending money on anything. Thank you very much. We'll be at our booth. Not booth. I stole the monitor next to the bar strategically. So if you guys want to have any questions for us, please let us know. My friends from Informatica, Dave Ridout and Azim are here to answer any questions. So thank you again.
We have a few minutes if there are any questions for Peter. By the way, a great opening. I love the quotes from Einstein and so forth. Really puts it into context. Really, really well done. Any questions, Peter, before we break?
Yes, sir.
Can Claire be used by business?
So the question is, can Claire help and support the business community versus just the technology community?
Yeah.
Short answer is absolutely. Because what Claire is meant to be is basically a Google-like search engine for all the knowledge about your data that we're basically capturing by scanning all that metadata through our cataloging capabilities. So your business might say, well, what data do we use to analyze customer retention in our credit card business? Today, you would have to write an email to someone in IT who may understand how to get that answer. In order to actually find the answer, what are they going to do? They're going to write a very complex SQL statement. That requires programming knowledge. That requires understanding of how to peruse through a structured data set, your data warehouse, and so forth. What Claire is going to do is bypass that entire process and give that answer directly to the business folks so that now they can decide, well, what are you going to do with that information? Are you going to tweak your customer retention policies, your rules? Are you going to be more proactive and reach out to customers that might have a high potential of defaulting on their credit cards? Those are all actions that the business can take based on the knowledge they have by reducing the time to get the answers to their data-related questions.
Yeah, the subsequent question to that, does it have a governance model built within Claire?
Absolutely. So we have a complete governance layer on top of the Informatica platform that includes stewardship, cataloging, data quality management, and so forth.
And soon to be certified against CDMC.
Yes, we are.
For its
so we've got the budgets. We are going through the certification process. I was involved with the council during COVID in the working groups to understand how the framework was going to develop out. At the same time, we were developing out our platform. So we purposely waited. And one of the key areas of the CDMC framework was to address PII and sensitive data management access. We acquired a company called Privitar that allows us to now control the access of unauthorized access to PII data, but not actually changing the data at the source. So if you're unauthorized, you're requesting access to data, we will tokenize those values and return the tokenized values to you. So now that we have that piece and we've matured our governance layer, we're going through certification, and our goal is, before the end of the year, we're making some really big news on what we're doing. So someone talked about productization around CDMC. This is the product.
Again, thank Peter and Informatica.